So strategies are next. So how to set up the conversation. So based on what you know about yourself, the situation, and the other person, what's a delivery system that you want to use to have the conversation? So one-on-one in person is one option. You might choose to write a letter. Maybe it's COVID and you can't meet them in person, or set up a video conference. Or the conversation you might have with a therapist or a coach. So maybe you've already decided to set a boundary and you don't want to talk directly with this person. So you might end up writing a letter that you may or may not send. So for this workshop, we're focusing mostly on the in-person conversational ones, but I wanted to highlight you have other strategies. And I think Tree mentioned earlier something about a text. You know, I would only use text and email to set up appointments. Text and email and any social media is not great for connection. I'm being straight with you. I've made lots of mistakes. So there just isn't enough bandwidth in email or in a text for connection. There just isn't. So take that as a physical constraint. It's physics. Not enough bandwidth here. So yeah, I guess what's up for me is this desire to contribute to more effective communication for you, because I've written some really long emails and oh my God, it doesn't usually go well. All right. So assuming that you are trying to schedule a conversation, what's the best time of day, the location for the initial consent conversation? I would suggest putting it on your calendar. If it's a big thing, just schedule your consent conversation on your calendar. If you're in a company, you might just schedule a meeting with your supervisor. I don't know, some companies have their own protocols around that. Right. I want to pause here for questions, comments. Tree, did this address what you want to talk about? Cool. I love thumbs up. Kelly, I see your hands up.
Yeah, for me, this feels like, for something that's 4 or less, it feels like a lot of prep work for a conversation that might be
right
short.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Sort of like the pass the salt conversation. You may not have to go through all this stuff to tell them, hey, my food doesn't have as much, it's not giving me as much pleasure as I'd like. And I want not only nutrition and health and well-being, I want some flavor. Would you be up for passing the salt? You're right. It may not have a lot of juice. That's why I suggested if you can find a conversation around a 4 so that we can practice. So it's sort of like learning how to ride your bike before you take the training wheels off. Is that helpful? So yeah, passing the salt doesn't require a lot of connection unless there's a lot of family history and pain, in which case we're probably talking about a coaching or a therapy session. All right, Laura, see your hands up.
I just wanted to say I feel like it might also, by planning it this way, it may also increase the risk of making the other person uncomfortable, because when I have somebody say, hey, I want to talk to you about this thing, are you free tonight? Then I spend the rest of the day being anxious about what is this big thing that has to be on the calendar to have a conversation about.
Yeah, thanks for owning your anxiety. So yeah, so if you would feel anxious if you went through this conversation.
Or being on the other end of it, yeah.
Yeah, so you imagine that the other person might have some stress and your need for consideration is up. am I hearing that correctly?
Exactly.
Yeah, so you have a need for consideration, and
Because
yeah.
I feel like a lot of people express their concerns about the other person's reaction, and I feel like this has a tendency to sort of build that up by scheduling it ahead, may actually enhance the other person's reaction because they may enter the conversation
Yeah.
with
So you-
apprehension to begin with.
So you have this imagining that, you know, it's going to create all this stress for the other person, and your need for consideration is up, and you're wanting to make it easy for them. Is that what I'm hearing?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
Just because I've had that happen to me, and I've had to ask the other person, look, you know, could you just ask me when you're ready to have the conversation, and then when if that doesn't work out, we could reschedule it then.
So you prefer to just be in the moment.
I prefer to be in the moment rather than building it up in my mind.
Yeah, so you have a clear preference for clear present requests, like right now. I like it.
No time like the present.
No time like the present. I love that. Yeah, me too. I roll that way as well. And so part of the invitation is, I mean, that is our default, right? We'd rather have the conversation in the moment. But given that we're practicing NVC and we want to get consent, they might be in the middle of something, and they, you know, if they're being honest with themselves, they would say, no, I'm not available right now. Could we talk later? And so that way, you know, they would be making the choice on whether or not to have the conversation. And then you might feel anxious on your own, but that's your thing. It's not theirs.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. So awesome. So I think this section is done with. So strategies, and just to highlight what Laura just said, I always try to go with the clear present conversation if I can, with the openness that the other person may not be able to, they may not say yes. They might not consent to it right away.